Good morning and welcome to our second Coffee with Council session. I'd like to thank all of the people in our gallery today for coming and those who have submitted questions in advance. We are hoping that this can be an open discussion where you're able to ask the questions that matter to you. And we have staff available here as well in case you have specific questions that you have. If we can't answer your question today, we will get your contact information and get you an answer as soon as we can. Before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping items. The question and answer period of today's Coffee with Council will be live streamed and posted on YouTube. This will allow members of the public who were unable to attend today to listen to this discussion. However, since we are live streaming this meeting, we ask that you refrain from discussing private or confidential information, including any resident's contact information, name, phone number, email address, etc. If you do have a question here, please raise your hand and we'll bring a microphone to you. And please note that the microphones are solely for the live stream and they're not connected to the speakers in our council chambers. If you do wish to speak, please speak loudly into the microphone so that everyone can hear you, especially those at home who are having their breakfast with us today. We want to try and get as many questions as possible, so please be as concise as you can with your questions. And one of the first things that I was going to mention is we did have an early question talking in general about this Coffee with Council. And the question was, is this Coffee with Council the only venue to talk to the town? And we just want to point out that this is one opportunity for residents to come in and informally talk about things. But people at home or people here can also reach out to us by using the contact information found at Strathmore.ca/council. If you do have a question or concern at any time, or you have an issue that you'd like to get some attention from or on, town staff are always around and here to help troubleshoot. On the town website, we have citizen communication forms and public works requests, and those are great ways for you to initiate contact with the town of Strathmore. And you can find these at Strathmore.ca/question. The public is also welcome, now that we're coming through COVID, the public is also welcome to attend all council and committee of the whole meetings. These are on the first 3 Wednesdays of the month, and they start at 6 p.m. Residents can speak at council meetings during the public comments or public hearing portion of the meeting, but you can only speak on items on the agenda for that night. So if you see the agenda that comes out beforehand and you have a question on an item that's on that night's agenda, then you can speak. And when we just don't want to have a lot of other issues coming in when we have often a very lengthy agenda to get through. You can learn more about the council meetings at Strathmore.ca/council meetings. And at this time, I think we do have a question. Scott, are you going to be asking the first question?
Yeah, I think Councillor Langmaid had a question about library.
Perfect. So we do have a little information that Councillor Langmaid is going to present that deals with the Strathmore Municipal Library.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and good morning, everybody. As some people in this room may know and others may not, I also sit on the Town of Strathmore Library Board, and we're very excited to announce the launch of a new fundraising campaign. Over the last year or so, we have collected recipes from residents around the town and collaborated to put them all in this lovely little recipe book. It's got historical pictures of our library and our town. And we will be selling them in various locations around town. They'll be available here at Town Hall, as well as potentially the Vault and Value Drug Mart. They're $20, and all proceeds go towards your local library to fund programming and initiatives in our community that really, help support our library and help support our residents. So I'm very excited that will be available starting today here at Town Hall and soon around town. And by the way, they make great Christmas gifts. So, we're coming up on that time of year. It's getting colder, starting to thinking about presents. Yes. Thank you very much for giving me a chance to pump up our local library. I know we work really hard for our community, and we have a lot of fans here. So thank you very much, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Langmaid, and thank you for all the time you spend going to library meetings and working with Marigold. I know Councillor Wiley is also a big part of the board as well, so thank you for your time that you put in. I do have a couple of easy questions that have been submitted, and one of the first ones is a question about why is the town of Strathmore investing in the yellow pea plant? That's the phytoorganics company that's coming here to build that plant. And its design is to take yellow peas from farmers in our county area and possibly Siksika as well. And they extract the protein from the yellow pea, and it becomes in the process, in the drying process, there's a wet process and a drying process. It becomes a tasteless, odorless white powder that is then used in food supplements and protein alternatives to meat products. But we haven't invested anything in phytoorganics. The town has invested time and effort. Our staff, who are a really good, hardworking bunch, have done a lot of work in a short period of time to bring this $225 million project into town. And as I've mentioned before, it's going to be about 200 to 300 jobs in the 2-year construction phase. And then once it's operating, it's approximately 70 full-time people working. So it's a really, really good addition to our town. One of the things that came up in our election campaigns were people were wondering and hoping for more job opportunities in town so that they didn't necessarily have to drive out into the county or into Calgary. So we have been working really hard to attract those. We haven't invested in the plant. We've just worked with them to secure the plant and get them in our town. And then we were fortunate. We have a really good relationship with the Western Irrigation District. So by working with them, we were able to find land that was suitable for them to build their plant. And so it's just in the area where just near south and east a bit of the off-leash dog park. So we have no investment. We just worked hard to bring it to our town. So that's a really good thing for Strathmore. The second one is the town being powered by the solar farm? And does the town own the solar farm? We are not being powered by the solar farm. We merely provided land for Capital Power to put in the solar farm. So we receive, as the town, we receive lease payments on the land as well as property taxes. But the electricity itself that's generated by the solar farm goes into the Fortis grid. So we don't get any discounts or free electricity, but we will receive lease payments and property taxes, which is quite a bit of new revenue that's coming into the town. If you haven't been out there, it's very interesting. The solar panels are dark, so they don't have any glare for people in the area. They also rotate. They will tilt to wherever the sun is facing. And even the back side of them will pick up reflection from wet grass and snow and will also be absorbing energy and creating electricity from that. The Capital Power, who own and operate the solar farm, have got a contract with local husband and wife ranching couple who bring in sheep to graze. And they use an electronic fence system, and they have 2 dogs staying out there. And the sheep basically take care of all the grass and weeds that are growing there, and then every week or so they shift their area of where they're working. So it's been quite an interesting thing to make really good use of the land in a variety of ways and to generate that electricity for the power grid. We didn't put any investment into that project either. We didn't put any money into it. It was merely finding land that we currently owned and then allowing them to set up their solar farm there. Scott, do you have another question for us?
Yeah. I'll warm up the crowd to ask questions.
Going to surprise everyone.
They asked, what is adopt a hydrant?
Okay.
They know the answer to it.
Thank you. Yeah, so adoptive hydrant, basically what it has to do with is in the winter months, heavy snowfall often buries fire hydrants, making it difficult for firefighters to locate and access them during an emergency. So the town's operations team, they do a great job of clearing snow from the town's hydrants, but since it's difficult to quickly remove snow from, there's over 360 hydrants in our town. And so we need community volunteers to help with that. So volunteers can adopt a hydrant by keeping it accessible all year long. So in the winter, you can keep a 4 to 6 foot wide path to the hydrant from the road and a 3 to 5 foot radius around it. And then in the summer, you can do the same thing just by clearing hedges, trees, and keeping the grass short. And you can find out more information on that at Strathmore.ca/adopt-a-hydrant. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Montgomery. When I'm walking my daughter's 100-pound dog in Hillview, he also adopts a hydrant, but he marks that with a different manner. So he does his own adopting hydrants. Scott, question again?
I have more, but
Does anyone in the audience have a question that they'd like to ask us or have some? Sure, we'll have a microphone coming to you.
over to you.
And if you wouldn't mind identifying yourself in case people are watching from home and don't know who you are, that would be great.
Hey, my name's Barry Watson. I live up in Strathmore Lakes. I got a question about hidden taxes town puts out or causes. It's either.
It's not.
What's-
It doesn't connect.
Doesn't connect.
I can.
Okay. So anyway, one of the things that is a hidden tax is the franchise fees that the town charges the utility companies. And these used to be years ago quite small, $10, whatever. Now they're getting up so that the last time or my last gas bill, franchise fee was higher than the carbon tax, if you can. So why are these going up? Why do they keep? I know the AMUA says you can do it, but how much does that total over the year?
It's a tough question. It's a good question. I understand people have concerns. Councillor Montgomery is going to weigh in on it as well. One of the things to remember is that the two main sources of revenue for a town are property taxes and utility fees. And so I understand what you're saying, that it's a hidden tax. It really isn't a hidden tax, but it is an opportunity to generate revenue so that the town continue to move forward. And I have to pay it as well. Like, all of us live in town. We all live in Strathmore. We have to live in Strathmore to be on council, so we pay it as well. I understand that it's a concern, but it is one of our revenue streams that we need to continue the town moving forward. And as you've seen this summer, we've had some major road work. We're replacing a lot of the infrastructure below the ground on the roads. We just did Westridge Road this summer, which, if you've ever, you obviously drive that quite a bit if you're going to a car dealership or a Subway or to have tires looked at. That's a road that's been there for a long time, and it hasn't ever been done. And it was really becoming unsafe, and there were problems with the infrastructure below. So those are projects that need to be done, and sometimes you have to look for ways to find revenue. I'm not in love with the idea of charging people more money because, as I said, I get charged that as well. But it is one of our revenue sources. And Councillor Montgomery, did you want to weigh in as well?
Thanks. So I guess just to speak to your point, it almost is it seems like a hidden tax because you say, well, why wouldn't you just increase my taxes? Why would you kind of hide it over here with this increase? So the difference between a franchise fee increase, for instance, and just like property taxes, there's certain institutions in town that do not pay property taxes. So there's churches, there's the courthouse, hospitals, schools. They do not pay property taxes, but they do pay franchise fees. And so it's a way for we could just go and raise taxes to make up that difference in that we need for revenue. But rather than doing that, we can increase the franchise fees, which actually, takes it from those institutions that aren't paying property taxes. So they're at least paying a little bit. So it keeps our taxes slightly lower than they would have to be if we didn't have the franchise fees and we didn't have the money coming from those institutions, essentially. So it's a way to get revenue from untaxable entities, essentially.
Yes, sure. Perfect, thank you.
and electrical franchise fees, and they're actually maxed. There's a cap put on by the province. So the only increase you'll see in franchise fees is a result of the actual electricity prices. So the town of Strathmore can't increase them any more than they already are. Opinions vary whether it's a tax or a hidden tax or a user fee. But the way they work is the more electricity you use, the higher your franchise fee is. I just saw a community that's contemplating a 5% franchise fee increase this year, and it would cost about $40 more a year. But if that was administered through property taxes, if there was no franchise fee, it would be 51. So there's actually a savings to the average homeowner by having franchise fees over just having property taxes. On the flip side, there are some entities that the councillor mentioned that have to pay more. If you're a non-residential taxpayer, so if you're a large electrical consumer in Strathmore, yes, it might be a little detrimental to you versus having the property tax. But for the average homeowner, it's actually beneficial. So if we didn't have it, you would pay a net increase overall in your property taxes.
But you say it's they're rate or ranked with the price of the power and price of the gas. So I'm hearing that power is going to double here in the next few weeks, and gas has already tripled. So, you know, it's okay to have a fee, but when you don't have control of it, it's up to the rest of the world. I think it's a little unfair.
Yes, but I guess the point is if we don't have electrical franchise fees, the town needs to raise that revenue somewhere else, and your taxes would actually be higher because it's spreading it out amongst a larger group. We have longer term contracts, and we're in some hedging options on utilities. So we actually just a couple weeks ago we signed off on a 5-year contract for electricity, and the price that we'll be paying for electricity for the town itself is within the historical 10 or 15-year range. So we've actually got a very attractive pricing for the power that the arena will consume or town hall here will consume. So in terms of our consumption of utilities, we do interact with brokers and get attractive prices on the market. And we had a very attractive price, so we locked in, I think it was for 4 years, just a couple weeks ago.
Interesting.
Hopefully that helps answer some of your questions. I know it's a concern, and as I said, we face it as well. It comes down to the town needing to generate revenue to move the town forward. When I first got on council in 2010, I was under the impression that the best thing you should do is aim for 0% tax increases. But 0% tax increases put you behind every year because inflation's always going up. So at some point, if you go for 0% tax rates, it looks great and it feels good at the time, but at some point the town has to play catch up then, and then the public can face higher tax increases because we haven't done it slowly. So I've learned in the last 12 years that the key as far as our residents go and as far as property taxes go is to make sure that they're reasonable, they're fair, and they're something that people can afford. Because unfortunately, when inflation goes up and the cost of gas goes up, we have to pay that cost of gas increase too. And it's for for example, our operations staff who have to drive around in vehicles, cut lawns, drive trucks, graders. All that is something that we have to take on as higher expenses too. And like any business, there is a situation where it has to be passed on to the consumer and to residents. So, but the key is, again, really trying to make sure, and we've worked hard in the last several budgets to make sure our tax increases are reasonable as much as we possibly can. Another question, Scott?
Yeah, I'll ask one. The town has received community requests for funding. So if I'm a resident, I have part of a community group, or I am a community group, how would How would I go about asking for something from you?
Scott, that's a good question, and I think it's one that I can even toss back to you because in case you can't see Scott in the gallery as well, Scott works in our communications and events team, and they do a really good job communicating to the public in a variety of ways. I think we've found, and I've noticed it even as a resident, that the town really tries to get ahead of issues and get proper information out to people, get people the real story. As most of us know, Facebook can be a pretty nasty place at times, and it really got that way during COVID. But a lot of times you can have misinformation get out to the public. And so our communications team has done a great job of getting the real story out as far as town projects, as far as issues that are hitting the town. And Scott, maybe you could just weigh in on how your department has gotten information out concerning that one group night. What we've done this year, we have a new CAO and some new administrative staff that are very strong. They decided that there are new ways to do things, some good ways to engage the public, and to make sure all the requests for funding from different groups happen in one particular point, so that you're not having different ones coming in at different times, and you always have to adjust your budget and your planning as far as how to spend it. So much like Revs used to be done in Strathmore, where people would all come to one location, one-stop shopping to try to find out what recreational thing you wanted to do or you wanted your child to be involved in. This is a one evening where various service groups, various bodies can come to us and request funding. So Scott, if you could maybe just speak on how it's been advertised and a little bit more about it. Thanks.
Sure. Yeah. Answer because I didn't expect that.
Sorry about that.
But today, in town, sent them an email and we asked them if they have anything that they want or just want to listen to other people's requests, join us. So in here, if you're part of an organizational group, a request to come and chat with your council about your community organization. That would be my answer.
Do we have some dates that we could put on that answer?
Sorry.
Like,
Good question. Danielle. I can't remember. off the top of my
I
head.
actually,
I think it's
cheated.
October.
I pulled it up on
October
Facebook. I pulled up your
20
Facebook
okay.
post right in front of me, so I can share the dates.
You-
So delegation requests, if you want to come speak to us at our community funding night, are due for submission on October 14th, and community group delegation night will occur on October 26th. So that should be a Wednesday. So Wednesday, October 26th, we'll welcome all the community groups, and as the mayor mentioned, this really helps us getting everyone in the room at once with what their plans are in our town for the next year, how we can best support them with a little bit of seed funding for maybe events or projects or capital maintenance they want to take on to help improve things in our town. Having all of that information at once is really powerful for us as a council, because then we're not throughout the year trying to keep track of, okay, I gave, we approved $2,000 here and $5,000 there and another $700 here and another $15,000 there, and what's the total that we're at? And what did we budget? We can do it all in once, and it makes it a really efficient process. It makes it so that community groups can plan for the future. They know what sort of funding they're going to have for the next year in our community, so that they can bring their best selves, as they always do, to Strathmore and prepare these really wonderful events for our community. So I think this new process is going to be, and by the way, it doesn't necessarily mean that if you have a great idea on November 2nd that you're completely out of luck, but we are really, really encouraging all community groups. Please come and chat with us. We want to hear from you all. And so October 14th, put in your delegation request by then. That's it should be about 2 weeks from now. You got 2 weeks to plan, and then we're excited to see everybody on October 26th here in council chambers.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question.
Thank you, Councillor Langmaid. Scott, is there anything you want to add about that?
No, those dates are in the ads, I promise.
Yeah. And we already know that we're going to be having a lot of groups come that night, but it's a chance for people to all come together at the same time and bring their proposals forward for the town to consider. We set aside a certain amount of money that can go to support different groups. Five for Life is an example, which does a lot of work in addition, work in supplementing education for really young children and lots of little programs for them to learn and grow. So those are the types of programs that come forward and ask for funding help. The next question, Scott?
Anybody else want to ask a question?
Oh,
Yeah, we have a couple. Nice. I'll start. I'll go over here first. Sorry, I had you up with your hand up. I saw yours first.
Run, Scott, run.
Good morning. My name is Ann Horn. I just had a quick question, and the exciting news that we have de Havilland coming into the county, not directly into Strathmore, but what's Strathmore doing to attract more people to Strathmore, using Strathmore, coming in and, making it your home? And are we doing more things to attract people?
well, thanks for the question. And yeah, the de Havilland airplane plant is going to be huge for Strathmore. I've heard estimates between 1,000 and 1,500 jobs when it's fully operational. There's going to be housing that's already set up to build houses here in Strathmore for the employees. So it's going to be a huge impact on Strathmore. I believe you're going to see in the next 3 to 5 years Strathmore grow quite a bit. It's a little worrying because you also have to provide services for the new residents. But we've recently, and maybe I can turn to CAO Scoble in just a minute, but we've also been working hard to get a new economic development officer in charge here and instituted that he or she can report directly to our CAO. CAO Scoble's first day on the job here in January of this year. He's new to us. We're fortunate to get him from St. Albert? St. Albert. Yeah, I forgot where he came from, but we've been fortunate to get him. He's had a lot of success bringing in big projects in the community and area of St. Albert. And day one in January, the phytoorganics file landed on his lap. And in a matter of months between January and May, we were able to secure them. They chose us instead of Medicine Hat. And we were able to secure land because we have a really good working relationship with the WID. So we have other things that we're working on, but one of the first things we're going to do is this new economic development officer, and our staff is constantly looking and working towards bringing more industry. That's one of the things that I heard in my campaign of 2021. People wanted to find jobs in Strathmore where they wouldn't have to commute. I touched on that earlier this morning, but we really knew that we had to try to find ways to get more industry here, and that would help with the tax base then. It would also help people work and stay in town instead of having to commute. So that's on our radar constantly. We feel the town is still an undiscovered kind of a gem because we have a lot of amenities for a town our size, and we're fortunate to have a really good hospital in our town that has a fully functioning emergency room. We have diagnostic testing there as well. We're looking at ways to possibly see. Yesterday I was at a meeting with mayors and the health minister of Alberta, and we talked about various issues like the doctor shortage, problems in various towns and their hospitals, and what we're finally starting to talk a little bit about is ways to increase the services in the hospital. I know 25 to 30 years ago we were doing deliveries here in Strathmore. Both my children were born at the hospital. So if there are ways to increase some of the services in our hospital is a really good selling feature to attract people to, because our society is aging and you're always looking for good health care. So that's a way to attract people. But I think we have a lot of amenities in our town. We have an outdoor disc golf course. We have 2 golf courses either in or near Strathmore. Lots of playing fields, ball diamonds, an beautiful indoor aquatic center. For the kids who skateboard, we have a skateboard park. We have a twin arena. I know that there's always a desire to try to get another twin arena, but that's a very big cost. CIO Scoble, did you want to weigh in on any of the things we're doing to attract some more residents, more business, more industry?
Sure, thank you. Resident attraction and business attraction go hand in hand. I mean, obviously we do have a lot of people that commute from Strathmore, but we have a lot of people that commute to Strathmore as well. So we you want growth in both areas. You need the housing to accommodate the new business opportunities, but the new business opportunities aren't going to come if you don't have the housing. So they kind of work together. You know, so with the de Havilland, for example, we're discussing that announcement with local developers here. We need to bring some more service lots on. I mean, if there's no housing in Strathmore, they're going to live somewhere else in the region, right? So you'll see a lot of business offshoots from that. It'll be good for our service industry. Facility like that will be good for parts and supplies and logistics as well. So we're working on a lot of that stuff. You know, we're putting, I guess what I've been saying is we're putting economic development on steroids. So we have just this week a new employee has signed with us. We'll be making more of an announcement next week. But we basically took the position from a coordinator up to an officer level. It's a significant signal. And last week as well, we have reorganized, and economic development is now directly reporting to me, the town manager. I'll have a very active role, but it's a strong signal to the business community that economic development is important in Strathmore. And it is very important because we need to increase the non-residential revenue. Right now, the town is very highly leveraged on residential taxation revenue. So, you know, we're at 80% residential to 20% non-residential, which is a little high. You know, a community like Leduc, for example, is 65 to 35. So the story I always tell is for every $100 of diesel that we put in a sanding truck in a community like Leduc, the residents pay 65, whereas in Strathmore we're paying 80. So the more business we can bring into town helps to reduce the residential tax burden. So we continue to pursue opportunities like FIDO. We have another opportunity right now that we've been shortlisted for, and they've skipped a couple of steps in the process to meet with us directly in the next couple of weeks, and that's upwards of 50 jobs locally. So they all go hand in hand. We're working on a new municipal development plan, which we'll be having some workshops with council and the public on very shortly. But again, in our new areas, we might look at a higher proportion of non-residential than traditionally in Strathmore. And part of that as well is we really need to look at what they call the missing middle in housing. So on the one end, you have apartments, and on the other end, you have single-family homes. So we're really looking at the missing middle, which is, you know, townhomes, zero lot lines, and things like that to make more affordable product for young people to attract them to the community. Strathmore is in about the middle in terms of demographics. We're not a young community, but by no means are we on the older end of it either. But we're kind of in the middle, and certainly you want young people moving in to regenerate the town and work locally and spend locally. So yeah, that's a quick summary of it, I guess.
Yeah, I'll just, you know, Kevin basically explained very well a lot of what the town is. The town has been working to streamline a lot of processes to basically facilitate development readily. I mean, like, the job they've done, you know, as far as kind of attracting business, and that's the best way to get people here is to bring the work, and then the people will follow. But as the mayor mentioned and as Kevin mentioned, it really comes down to, you know, building the capacity for those people, and that building the capacity for people is not really generally the job of the municipal council or of the town. So, but what we can do is we can, as Kevin mentioned, work with developers to make sure that they're able to get stuff going as quickly as possible to meet the demand, and then hopefully capture a lot of those new residents here.
Sure.
You're getting all of us. We all have lots to say on this, and I'll try and keep this short and brief and say that you know, my co-councilors and the CIO, everything they said, absolutely spot on. And I think the other thing, you know, that's on my mind certainly is, you know, when we're talking about these new developments, it's very exciting, and you know, Strathmore is in some ways competing with our other surrounding communities to attract these residents here. And for me, the most important thing that I think I can keep in mind is the reasons why I love to live in Strathmore and why you love to live in Strathmore are going to be likely the same reasons that another family that doesn't currently live in Strathmore is going to want to come to Strathmore. So understanding what it is that we love about our community, what engages us in our community, what makes us go, I live in Strathmore. Strathmore's a great place to live. And really growing on that and understanding that aspect of it and how we as a council and as an administration can support that in our planning is going to be huge. So if I can take a second to plug something, we are currently working through a process where we're doing a community engagement survey, community satisfaction survey, where you can provide feedback directly to us on, what do you love about Strathmore? What makes you love to live here? What else could we do to make you love living here more? Because that's the information that we can use in many ways, in addition to economic development and attracting business, also to attract residents and keep residents and bring residents that are also going to be engaged and active members in our community. So if I can plug that, there is a link provided if you go to Strathmore.ca on the very front page, there is a link to the community engagement survey. It is anonymous. Your information's not tracked. So, if you say Melissa Langmaid really should not be wearing a Canadian tuxedo to Coffee with Council, if you say that, I won't know that you said it, but I probably won't wear it again. So please, if you have the opportunity, I really encourage everyone in this room and at home to please get involved, share your opinions, share what you love about our town, share what you think we might be able to do better here, and give us that information so that we can work on it as administration and council as a team. Thank you very much.
We'll link to that survey you just said in the YouTube video as well. And in an hour, I'll make Strathmore.ca/survey go to that if you go there in an hour.
And you had 4 different people answer your question. Did you hear some things that you feel better about as far as the town moving forward?
Yeah, I think so. For the most part, I was thinking facilities, sports for. I think that's something that I don't have children that age and family that help young. I think that's always something that we plan for towards. I know.
Yeah. That's good. Just for clarification, Ann, are you thinking of like an indoor play center?
Indoor play center, bowling center, something that it attracts, gives teenagers something to do.
Yeah.
I think we have a lack of something for that age group, and I think that's something we can strive for if we're looking to bring in more people.
Now, I can give you an example on the bowling situation. A few years ago, I was the same as you. I missed the bowling alley. When I taught phys ed at the high school, we would have bowling units, and we would come down for a whole week and bowl. And I know the seniors had a league. There was a junior league. There was an adult league. I reached out to the Bowling Proprietors Association of Alberta to let them know that we had a couple of potential facilities. They directed me to the owner-manager at the Banff Springs Hotel, and he in turn went online, and I think he even made a visit out here, and he took a look at the old Sobeys location, which is now planned to be a Catholic church hopefully in the near future, but he felt it was a bit small. And at the time he came out, the old bowling alley that we used to have was being rented, I think, by a different, yeah. So we had, and it's something that maybe we can mention this to our economic development officer, some of those things. There could be ways to partner with private enterprise or to help them get through the steps to set up. But I would love to see a bowling center again, and I do get questions about an indoor play center. So, that's something that I know we should probably keep on our radar as well. But we haven't forgotten about it. And you made a really good point as far as Strathmore does have a lot of amenities. There's just a few things we could tweak and continue to make the town grow. I think the big step is we now have an economic development officer who's going to be reporting directly to our CAO, and our staff is always willing and ready to get going on things. We were judged this year in the Communities in Bloom program again, and our communication staff, Scott, worked hard to put together an incredible brochure on all the things that the town has as far as parks and spaces and gardens and trees and pathways. So yeah, I really appreciate your question, and I hope we've given you some hope that things are going to happen. And as I said, buckle up, because the next few years the town is, I believe, going to really, really grow, unlike we've had before. It's going to be pretty impressive what happens. Scott.
I think Anne might have written question 3. This is pretty much identical to it. I can add to it. Then it just says, does the town plan on building new rec facilities, etc.? We have also received a question about or spray park.
Well, that question I can tell you is, as far as squash courts, we haven't had any discussion about squash or racquetball. We have had a lot of people, our group, come to us about outdoor pickleball courts. So that has been mentioned to us as far as keeping it on the horizon. A twin arena, we did a lot of work planning to see if how expensive it would be. Lakewood Meadows even came with a proposal where they would build a twin arena in their area, and we would pay operational costs as well as leasing payments. But the costs just seem to be far too high at this point in time. A new twin arena, if you're going to have it with proper seating so that eventually you might have an AJHL team here, is going to be $25 million. And that's a huge amount of money to come up with, especially when you consider that about 130,000 of a project extra to the budget. So in other words, each $130,000 equates to 1% in tax increase. So if you were to look at a $25 million building, obviously you'd look at grants and other revenue streams and corporations that might want to come involved. But a twin arena is just so expensive for us to try to do. You betcha.
One of the other issues too with building like a big facility like a new arena is that so about 90% of the cost in the life of a building is actually in the operational cost. So even if we spend $20-30 million on an arena, we're looking at over the life of that hundreds of millions to operate it. And it's kind of funny actually, like in my time on council in the last 5 years, I think we've had several offers to build an arena, either like, kind of as the mayor said, like either in town or even just on the outside of town. And it's easy to kind of, say, yeah, go ahead and, build us an arena. But then as the mayor just mentioned, for every $130,000 in operating costs, we're looking at about 1% tax increase. So like, we could get an arena, but then, have to raise taxes by, 15-20% or something like that just to, pay for that. So it's and to I guess the other points as well. It's the mayor's mentioned that he's contacted say a group like the bowling association. Before my time on council, even there was the odd time when I would actually personally contact and I guess you could say lobby or ask say, hey, there's a demand here and so. If businesses out there, get contacted by people in a community, they will likely at least look us up, and possibly look into setting up something here. So I would just tell everybody, like, don't always wait for the government to do something, like pick up the phone, call somebody, get friends together, write letters. That's going to be a lot more effective in the long run, and quicker and cheaper too, because yeah, we could always have the town staff contacting, every business out there. But then, like that's going to cost a lot more in taxes and whatnot. So, yeah, and if you get positive feedback from a business, and you need kind of, some sort of, assistance from the town as far as, information or something like that, by all means, you could ask the town at that point. But yeah, it certainly never hurts to kind of, do a bit of the legwork. So, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Montgomery. Part of the question here also talks about if the town has any plans for a new outdoor pool. At this time, we don't have any plans for an outdoor pool. We did have an outdoor pool many, many years ago. In the mid-90s, I believe, is when the new aquatic center was opened. But as a parent who had children in the outdoor pool swim lessons, There were so many times swim lessons had to be canceled because of thunderstorms, or the weather would take a turn and it would be very cold. We know what our summers, maybe they used to be like. They're pretty hot now, but it was difficult making sure that the swim lessons and the pool opening could stay consistent each day. It was often shut down because of weather and lightning storms. That was where the big push came to have an aquatic center, an indoor one where you could keep everything working well. As far as the spray park, Jamie, I don't know if you've heard anything. The spray park was one that was created by the Lions Club in town. And for those of you at home who may not know, it's the one that's right near Kinsman baseball field. So I don't know if you've heard anything, or Mark have heard anything as far as possible expansion or changes to the splash park?
Excuse me, Your Worship, not at this time. The town adopted a recreation and culture master plan in 2020. Obviously, that plan is now a couple years old, but it did a comparison between other like-sized municipalities. Some of the ones that are listed here are Beaumont, Camrose, High River, and Stony Plain. Those are communities that are around 13,000 or 17,000, and communities of that size typically only have one splash park or one amenity, things like that. So we haven't looked at it yet, but that's not saying we won't. I think the important thing that for council needs to recognize, as well as the community, is that before the construction of any new facility, the town typically tries to complete a needs assessment or a feasibility study, just to determine whether the demand is really there. One thing that came out of our rec master plan and the development of it, which no one ever foresaw, was the need for a multicultural or an arts and culture building. That was one of the things that was highlighted and came out of that study in 2019, 2020. And so that's why those priorities or some things are ranked there. And at that point, we kind of waited to council and then determine whether the costs and whether it meets the needs of the community.
Thanks, Mark. Hopefully that answered the question that was submitted, and you've gotten some information regarding those recreational situations. Hopefully we can look into, again, if there's anyone interested in bringing a bowling alley back to Strathmore. I know it would be a big hit with our seniors. When the bowling alley was here, the senior lodge would also bring residents over in their bus to do bowling. So it'd be a great thing to have back here. Scott?
Yeah. Here.
I'm so sorry, but may I take a quick second before we pop to the next question? Sir, I'm very excited to hear what you had to say, but I also want to just note, yesterday we had the grand opening of new horseshoe pits up at the Ag Society. It's a beautiful new facility. They're talking about bringing in tournaments and things, so if you're looking for a new sport to pick up, or perhaps you've played horseshoes before and you know how to throw a ringer, go check it out.
Scott?
Yeah.
Hi, my name is John, and I'm here with my friends. We live across the... And tired of listening to all the noise at the cabana every night. Young kids squealing tires, honking horns, just noisy the whole time. And when they leave here, you know, they try to see how fast they can get to the curb. You know, they floor their vehicles, and it's noisy all the time. We can't even be in our place with the windows open. It's noisy. Is there anything that can be done about it? We've talked to the RCMP, and, well, we're short of manpower. We'll try to do this, do that. Nothing seems to happen.
And just for clarification, is this late at night? Is it when the sun is set and it's dark?
No, they start after supper. Lately, they've been there right after school, but quiet then, but later on, 7, 8 o'clock till who knows when I start. And if you go out there, like there's still marks that they squeal, black marks are still there. We're just getting tired of it, like every single night.
Well, thank you for bringing that forward. It'll be on our administration's radar now. One of the reasons we put the town hall down here is we thought that with the town hall here and our enforcement officers right at Kinsman, it might make it less popular for young people to bring their vehicles here. But obviously, it's picked up again. And we've both talked, Councillor Scoble and I have talked about litter in the area behind the Farmers Market Pavilion too. So now that you've raised it, our administration will hopefully be able to look into it and see if there's a way we can get this reduced or at least have more of a presence. We have our bylaw officers working during the day, and then the RCMP are also here. But I understand it's difficult, and I understand it's frustrating. So now that we have it back on our radar, hopefully we can think of ways to hopefully lessen that for you.
Absolutely. We can look at, we can talk about maybe stepping up patrols, things like that. One thing that our RCMP in town are currently spearheading, they have a program going that they're trying to pick up called Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design. And we did a bit of that here with putting town hall here, because you used to have, you know, a bit of a dark parking lot where kids could kind of, you know, if I was a teenager again, that would be a perfect place for me to hang out, you know, after dark. So, you know, we built a nice parking lot, put some lighting in it. You know, the building lights can help with that. But obviously, we've, you know, they seem to maybe leave this parking lot alone, but they found another spot. So perhaps this is an opportunity that we might be able to speak with our RCMP partners and look at, you know, maybe using that program there. And I think CIO Scoble, you might have something to add to this conversation as well.
Well, certainly it's on our radar already. You know, in addition to the noise and that, there's, you know, I guess there's a lot of garbage there every day as well, and a lot of that garbage, how do I put it, isn't appropriate for young families or young kids to be seeing either. So we actually just had a sort of an interim meeting yesterday. We've got some short-term measures that we want to look at, as well as some longer-term measures as well. So it's top of mind for us too, because the staff park over there and the stuff we're seeing on the ground in the morning is not appropriate for anyone to see. So yeah.
Thank you. So just in conclusion, it's definitely on our radar now again. And since our staff park back behind the Farmers Market Pavilion, they see a lot of things. We'll be looking at ways to hopefully lessen that for you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for echoing that.
Another question from the young man in the front row.
Everyone, my name is Aiden Nelson. I am 8 years old. I have lived in Strathmore all my life. I love to bike and play outside. It takes a long time to drive to Chestermere and play at their bike park. A lot of my friends have to drive too. I think Strathmore should build a bike park so that people don't have to drive to Chestermere. Building a bike park in Strathmore would be good for families to watch their kids play. If people buy treats before or after going to the bike park, there will be more jobs in town. People will come to our town. I would like to meet with you about the bike park. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Aiden, for that question. And you're probably going to enjoy part of the answer, because each Tuesday morning I have a meeting with CAO Scoble. And just this past Tuesday, so day before yesterday, we actually discussed a bike park, and we actually discussed an area that possibly could be considered for one. So we have some big meetings coming in October. There are budget meetings. And towards the end of October and into November, we'll be talking about budget for the next year, what things we need, what things we don't need, what things would be great for the town. And the council then decides on which ones we think we're going to be able to support or financially put in. And I could definitely meet with you, Aidan, if you want, and we could talk some more about it. But I just want you to know it's already come up in our discussion. And it might also, again, come up in our budget meetings, because we know there are a lot of kids in town who do like to bike, and we have some green spaces where it could possibly be done. We have to look into, and I don't know a lot about liability as far as these bike parks go. Liability just means what happens if someone gets hurt or there's some damage to some equipment or something in the park. We would just have to look at all that to make sure it's going to be safe for everybody. But I understand it can be frustrating to always have to go to Chestermere. Anything from operations or?
Ask, Aidan, I have a quick question for you. If we were, and I can't say that, I can't promise that we will build a bike park, but I think it would be great too. I've seen the one at Chestermere and it's pretty awesome. But I'd like to hear from you. What would that bike park need to have for you? What would you be most excited about? Is it the jumps? Is it the track?
Like I like when there's like big hills going down, like then it hits up. Like even if there's like each time it goes harder and harder, like in Chestermere, like there's these ramps that go straight, then you go down. Like it keeps going harder and harder. I think that we should make for like older kids, they can do that to keep them busy.
Oh, so if I hear you right, what I'm hearing is maybe an area for the older kids with bigger bikes and who like to go real fast and maybe do the real big jumps. And then maybe some areas for younger kids so they can come learn and not be scared that they're going to get run over by the big bikes. Did I hear you right?
Yeah, and also in Chestermere, there's like, instead of going on ramps, there's a little track that I always go on. Like you just go down over bumps and you just kind of jump a bit sometimes. And I like just going on it because it's fun.
That sounds pretty awesome. I think that sounds like a heck of a lot of fun. Thanks so much for coming to talk to us today.
Thank you.
So Aidan, it's definitely going to be something that we'll be talking about. It's an idea that's been brought up by some others as well. And then maybe when we're done here, I can give you and your mom my business card, and if you want to reach out to me, we can become pen pals and email each other. That'll be cool. I can keep track of you too, see what you're up to. Okay, Scott, you have another question? Oh, we have a question from Aidan's mom.
Is it about bike paths?
Yeah, so my name is Wendy. I know we touched a lot on recreation, and I do think, we've been here in Strathmore for over 15 years, and the growth that we've seen has been fantastic for families. But in our 15 years here, we have had 2 children. Our oldest son has Down syndrome, and what we have noticed over the years is, although our recreation is increasing, there is a lack of support for like inclusive and adapted programs in our community. I have to say, I drive to Calgary for almost every adapted sport for him. We are a very involved family in our community. We do our bike paths, we go to our parks, we, play sports with our friends out in the fields. But when it comes to like swim lessons, which is a problem for like just to get into swim lessons without having a disability is a challenge. Let alone finding a supported swim program, right? Like I think this is a two-part issue here for swim lessons. But our only option, like when I contacted the pool, was, well, you can pay for private lessons. Is like, I guess what I'm trying to see is our community as it grows, is there any planning, any person in our council that has any sort of disability studies, inclusive backgrounds to, like, I feel like Strathmore has a high number of families that have people with disabilities, but I don't feel like our community has a lot of supports for recreation for them. So does our community have any plans for that? Has it ever been discussed? Is there, yeah.
I'll start this one off, though I expect you'll hear from a couple of different people in the answer. So on council, prior to my time on council, I worked in town with an organization called FAME, which provides support to adults with disabilities, and I absolutely hear what you're saying. There is limited programs that are especially structured towards adaptive and adaptive learning for people with disabilities. I know that our pool does, our pool and our rec facilities, they do have programs where, chaperones and so a support person coming in with a person with disabilities, can get in for free and things like that. But I personally, I hear where you're coming from. We could do more. And I would be personally interested in seeing more come for people with disabilities in our community. And not only that, but just in general, more inclusion. We have a number of people in our community that live with disabilities of one sort, or a differing ability of one sort or another. And unfortunately, we don't see that a lot. There's not a lot of visibility of that in our community, even though they do live here. They're residents. They, participate in activities and are looking for the same services as a very able-bodied person, and they should be able to access that. So thank you for bringing it forward. If it's possible, I'd like to give you my card after the meeting and have more conversations with you directly. I would really like to get a better picture of how, where we can start and where we can go. Exactly what. So thank you very much for bringing this up. Anyone?
Thanks. I just want to let you know, a couple of months ago, I submitted an administrative inquiry, which is, it's a fancy term where councillors can submit a question to hopefully get an answer in a timely way from administration. And I did, what part of town do you live? Okay. Well, what I've done, and I don't know if Jamie, if you remembered, or Mark, you've seen it yet, I put an administrative inquiry in for playground equipment in a green space in Hillview. And I don't know exactly how to explain it, but it's the part of Hillview that is closest to the golf course. And it's near the 817. There's a green space where there's some duplexes and then residential homes. And I've submitted an inquiry for playground equipment to go there. Because really, if you live in that part of Hillview, the closest playground is across the 817 at the Ag Society grounds. And that's not great to take little kids across the 817. So if we're able to get playground equipment there, maybe that's one where we can look at inclusive kinds of equipment so that it can be used by able as well as kids who have challenges. But that's something that we can talk about because that administrative inquiry should be coming back to us fairly soon. But it's something where I've already asked for equipment, and now it's just a matter of maybe we fine tune it, tweak it so that we have stuff so that it's inclusive.
Is also when it comes down to recreation that she kind of touched on is I think Strathmore has so many great sports activities like our what is it, Revs or Reeves, going in there is amazing. I think like the size of our town, we have many opportunities, but we don't have a lot of individual like activities, say like rock climbing or even like access to like kayaking or canoeing. I know there's lots of water and people just don't know what they're allowed on or not on. Or bowling, I know that's a topic, right? But having like activities, community activities for people that like having adapted playground equipment is amazing. But we also grow out of that. And I know many people that have left Strathmore simply because their kids are growing up. There's nothing for teenagers that have disabilities. There's not much for them to do, right? And so that like focusing on individual like rock climbing, bike parks, right, where they can still be really successful.
Well, I think if you get Councillor Langmaid's card, and Aidan will have mine, so you'll have to ask him for my card. But you could possibly, we could start to email, and you could maybe suggest some things that you think, or if you even know parents who have children with special needs, maybe you folks could get together and submit some ideas to us, and we can look forward. But we do have the option now with that, hopefully a playground equipment coming into Hillview, we can look at making it more inclusive if it gets approved. Okay, thanks. Scott?
up in our community. I would really. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Montgomery, you're okay? You didn't have a?
Yeah.
Okay. That's, I was just asking him if you
Well,
wanted to talk.
I'll say, like, I certainly agree with your point about, we need more activity in the community rather than just, and that's something I've been kind of hammering on. We hear from the groups like, say, minor hockey, they're a big group, but there's, thousands of people out there who are doing individual sports, like walking or kind of rock climbing or other things like that. So, and it's, we are listening to those people, and we do have them on our day. So we.
Thank you. Question from Barry?
Sure.
I got a question about the lights out by the Petro-Canada Highway 1. Fantastic that they're there. Some people don't stop at them quite often. Big trucks go rolling right on red lights all the time. I see this all the time. People speeding, big trucks rolling right through red lights, and someone's going to get hurt there. Is there anything we can
Well, that's a good,
do to help that? Like policing, like used to be the police would park in that little grassy area by the Petrocan, and they'd have their radar out and they'd stop 100 people a day. But I
That's-
haven't seen them there for a few years. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that's those are good questions, and we have a really good staff sergeant who's joined us recently. His detachment has been working really hard on traffic safety, traffic violations, and so we can definitely mention it to them. One of the things we tried to do to improve that intersection was to add that second turning lane, second left turning lane, to try to make that a little less bottled up. And the other thing I wanted to do is we can mention this to our staff sergeant, or our CAO is aware of it. We can see if there can be more of a presence or looking at that area.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And one other question, I know that light's different when you're coming in from the west, the turn lane. Can it not be made the same as the other two?
To sync it?
Where the advanced light to turn comes on, and then once it goes off, it stays green, so that, if there's no traffic, you can turn.
Yeah, I can maybe turn to CAO Scoble. We'd have to work with Alberta Transportation.
Yeah.
They're the ones who control the intersection and control the highway there.
Yeah.
But maybe there's something that we can talk to them about, synchronizing the lights. I know what you mean. When you're coming in a certain direction, it's a different time than the green light to go through. Yeah. And that intersection itself was brought in. It was pushed really hard by former Councillor Bob Sobel, who was a former Mountie for many, many years. And I think that intersection has become way more safe than when it was
It's great.
not controlled by lights. But yeah, we can talk to our staff sergeant, possibly CAO Scoble. Did you have any comment?
Yeah, well, you're right on, Mayor. I mean, we can have further discussions with the province, but they do control that intersection, so we can't make adjustments to the lights. We would have to ask them to, but we'll take it away and talk to Alberta Transportation.
And I'll follow, I guess, so, you've raised a concern about, the safety at that intersection, and then, you mentioned one at the other end. And so, and this is just for general information. So the town has something called the Citizen Communication Forum on the website. So, in between these coffees, anything that you notice like that, you can always contact the town to, and they can have, a look at it, and then possibly send enforcement, because council really can't direct, force things differently. But if you contact the town, they can respond to that a lot sooner than going to council, essentially. And even something like, if you guys see, like, say a pothole or something like that, yeah, there's if you go to the town website and then you look up a work request, they have, and I've used it a number of times myself. They're very responsive, and you can even track the issue, and anything like potholes or anything like that you notice, you can have the town come and deal with it quite quickly.
817 section to the south. Right side lane.
So if it's A17, it could potentially be the province, like that's a provincial road. It would kind of depend, I guess, where, you know, if it's on 817, probably provincial. If it's kind of at the intersection, it could be, yeah. And so that, even that's something where, you know, because, you know, the town, you know, they don't have the capacity, let's say, to notice everything like that. So that's where citizens can jump in. And so Volker Steven, for instance, they might be responsible for kind of maintaining that. But at the very least, you could contact the town and let them know, and then the town can, you know, forward that on to the appropriate body if the town isn't responsible for it themselves.
Thanks, Councillor Montgomery. I believe CAO Scoble and I have a meeting at 10:30, but I'll just mention this one question, and then I'll leave the balance to Councillors Montgomery and Langmaid. There's a question here that deals with, does the town plan on connecting the bike path on George Freeman Trail to Brent Boulevard? We had a pathway added when George Freeman School was built, and the question is, can it be linked so that I guess anybody, a lot of students travel from Brent Boulevard by Wheatland Elementary, Crowther, Strathmore High, and they would be traveling along a bike path along George Freeman Trail. I know it's one that's been talked about, Jamie. I don't know if do you know if it's on our list of pathways in the near future to try to do?
I don't believe it is, Mayor.
Okay.
But it's something, again, if council wants us to look at it, we can do some rough costing. One thing I wanted to note, it's probably not popular, but you still can get there on your bike. It's just not a direct path.
Yeah.
So there is a pathway through Brentwood, Maplewood, you know, to get to where you're going, but it's just not a direct pathway.
Yeah, that's true. And each year we designate 1 to 2, sometimes if we're lucky, 3 pathways. I was just doing some notes here, and since 2010, when I first got on council, we've installed 20 paved pathways in town. So it's almost like 2 a year, maybe a little bit less, and some were quite substantial. We know that it's been something that people have asked about, so we can go back and have that discussion as far as possibly getting it added. We're definitely all about trying to make connectivity between our pathways. We also are one of the few towns in Alberta that has a really nice irrigation canal that flows its way through the town. So it's always been on my radar, and WID has been so good to work with lately. They have allowed, in 2021, they allowed us to put 2 brand new bridges across the irrigation canal to link communities. And then they also, for the first time in several years, I was able to talk to Dan Shute in the board of WID, and they opened up their maintenance bridge, which is right close to the golf course, one of the holes. And so that gave us 3 canal crossings that has really helped with connectivity. But now that this question has come to us, we can put it on our radar and see if there's a chance to get it added. We're always looking to have new pathways put in the town and improve connectivity and transportation for people of all kinds of transportation abilities as well as devices.
And just one thing for people to keep in mind, you know, you might be saying, you know, like, why is the town so slow on you know, building this pathway or that pathway? First of all, not only are we have kind of a number of pathways that are, let's say, prioritized, but also we are maintaining pathways as they break down, like pathways, you know, of 15, 20 years ago. And then also, there's also the maintenance costs that go into clearing pathways and maintaining them on a year-to-year basis. So, you know, it's easy to install these things, but then we also have to worry about the subsequent operating costs.
Thanks. And if I could just add one last comment about paved pathways. One of the ways that a town can, you know, you're always trying to have things where you don't necessarily have to find the funds to do it. One of the ways is to have our developers who create subdivisions, we have to ensure that they put in pathways. Because, for example, several years ago when the areas of Cambridge were first put in and the ranch area, we could have done, the town at the time, I wasn't with the town then, but we need to work with developers when they build their communities to ensure that they're putting in pathways so that years later it doesn't fall on the town to have to pay for the whole pathway. I think these new subdivisions that get built, we should be working hard to ensure that the residents in those areas are getting paved pathways and that they're able to be linked to the ones we already have in town. We saw during COVID, people used the pathways so much because so many recreation facilities were closed. You needed to find more simple ways to do recreation things, and the pathway turned out to be something really good for people of all ages. And Anne, you were talking about the indoor walking track too. Indoor walking track, I don't think we'll ever know how many people we'll have saved by seniors, adults of all ages, walking on an indoor path instead of trying to walk outside in winter. So it's really, really important that people are able to look after their health and use our pathways. And Jamie, we'll probably all be discussing what to do as far as that George Freeman Brent Boulevard pathway and whether there's a chance. I know it's going to be a costly one because it's a long stretch along George Freeman Trail. And at this time, I think CAO Scoble and I do have to drift away to another meeting, but I'll leave you in the hands of these two councillors. Thank you.
All right, the mayor's gone. We can party.
Does anyone else have any questions? No? Did you want to ask how do we deal with inflation?
Here, I've talked a lot.
We just raise taxes, raise fees. Well, like truthfully, like, so part of it is, you know, obviously when you're with inflation, sometimes your house value will increase. So the town does receive increased revenues through property. Even if we don't even raise the tax rate itself, when your property value goes up, the town receives more revenue. So that's one way, I guess, that, you know, it can hopefully keep up with inflation to some extent. Although a lot of times that the inflation isn't really kind of matching what's happening with the housing industry at the same time, or with house values. So there is increasing the mill rate. That's one mechanism. Increasing fees, as I said. Yeah, and the town deals with inflation, you know, just like any other business or person. You know, there's rising labor costs that go along with it. There's rising material costs that go along with it. And the town only has so many levers as far as generating revenue or collecting revenue. And so unfortunately, well, but, you know, I will say that, you know, one way that the town of Strathmore is currently dealing with inflation is by just attracting more industries and more people to the town. The more industries and more people that we can attract, the more that will spread out the tax base, which will, you know, especially compared to other communities, will reduce the need to come to the same, you know, the same taxpayer over and over again to make up for those increased costs. Thank you.
Teamwork makes the dream work. I'll add a little bit to that in that, you know, it's my belief that the town manages inflation not terribly different than the folks at home do with your own home budget. You have to look at the services that you're providing and the services that you're contracting from others, and do a review of that to make sure that what you're paying for and what you're being paid to do is in line with the level of service that you expect. So, you know, that's something that we're in the process of doing. We're in process of doing a level of service review. You know, what services do we offer the town, and at what level? And is that the perfect level? Is that the level where we want to stay? Is that a level that we need to increase? Or perhaps are we over-serving our community? You know, a good example, a great example of this actually is just recently the walking track at the Strathmore Motor Product Center is now opening a little earlier. You know, that's a change in level of service, something that we're looking at, and if it's successful, that's awesome. You know, that's a great way that we can serve our community, but it's also looking at it and going, okay, how many people are coming at 6 a.m.? Because I can promise everyone at home, it's not me. But, you know, I've been told there are people who like to get up early to exercise, and, you know, that's awesome for them. We must not run in the same circles. Huh? It's a walking track, circles, no? My husband didn't find that one funny either, and I thought it was great. But, so it is. It's about reviewing our levels of service, reviewing, what we're bringing in and what's going out, and it's very, very similar to the, the really difficult decisions that a lot of families in town, including my own, are trying to make right now, looking at our increased costs and trying to decide what's most important to us, what do we value the most in our community, and, making decisions that are sometimes really difficult from there, and it's not an easy job, but it's an important one. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the question. The next question just has to do with regarding the skate park. It says, curious what council's vision for the skate park is moving forward. And they also commented that they're grateful for the help of the town in bringing the community together at the Strathmore skate park. And they love it, and they would love to see it become even more accessible for the community to spend time at. I would like to ask Mark to talk about this one, please.
Yes, sure, Councillor Montgomery. This is something that we've discussed internally about seeing about whether we can expand or change the scope of the skate park. Obviously, this is one of those things that we would always request or always ask council for their support to do that feasibility or that needs assessment to determine exactly what the community is asking for within that amenity. Is it more skate rails? Is it more bowls? Or is it more jumps in some capacity? Through that information, it allows us to gather some much needed information and to develop some costs and then present them to council for their approval or things like that. And as Councillor Montgomery said, there's always a challenge between juggling which amenity needs to be built or which one needs to be maintained or which one needs to be upgraded. So that's where we try to gather information, and that needs assessment is an essential element of it to gather data from the actual users of the community.
Thanks a lot for that answer, Mark. I guess with that, if there's no further questions, I'll say thank you very much. Thank you very much, Hayden, for coming in and asking the question that you did. And yeah, as the mayor said, definitely get a hold of him, and he'll be able to help you with that. And yeah, thank you to the rest of the community. Anybody that's tuning in at home or in the future watching this, thank you very much. And thank you very much for Langmaid as well.
And thank you, Co-Councillor Montgomery. Teamwork makes the dream work. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. And, oh, yes, and administration, our lovely administration, who gives us the answers that we need and helps organize these things because I can't make the technology work. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe out there and stay dry.
Thank you.